This is my partner in truth,
Fernando.
and today we are going to talk a little bit about the private sector getting involved in the public sector. Private sector, getting involved in government. There are differences. We don't really so much want government to get involved in the private sector, such as companies. But I actually am okay with, private sectors, the private companies, influencing the government. And there's two big things happening right now. Elon Musk and Twitter. And then there's Disney and Florida governor, and there's kind of different things about that going on. But what do you want to talk about first? I think in foremost, Elon Musk. That's a bigger news. That's the more international.
Actually, yeah, let's do it. So if you guys aren't aware, Elon Musk recently held a poll on Twitter where he said, "Do you like something about free speech is essential to a functioning democracy or?"
Right.
Platform, do you believe Twitter adheres to these policies? And he said, vote carefully because the results of this poll, something.
Right.
And I can actually look that up here, but the people voted, and I think it was like 70% voted no, that Twitter does not adhere to these free speech policies.
And this was on Twitter, so these are Twitter users voting against Twitter's policies.
And I mean, it's no surprise. Like, we all know Twitter has always been left-leaning. They censor a lot of right-wing content, and they let a lot of left-leaning things fly. And if you don't believe me, the Taliban have an active Twitter account.
Right.
Maduro, the dictator in Venezuela, there are a lot of people who do horrible things.
Right.
And have Twitter accounts.
And Donald Trump does not.
Exactly. And
Libs of TikTok actually, I don't know if they got removed from Twitter, but they were being threatened.
Well, Babylon Bee got blocked from Twitter. And if you're unfamiliar with Babylon Bee, they are a satire Republican news outlet. So by satire, I mean everything they post is fake, and it's meant to be funny.
Right.
So they post like outlandish things, and one of the things they posted.
Their platform is saying, "Hey, this is fake. This is a joke."
Yeah, it's satire.
So, right.
And one of the things they posted is, I think it was they were saying that, I think it was something Levine. I don't remember, but it was a transgender person, and they put that person won Man of the Year as a joke, and they blocked their profile and their account, and they refused to bring it back. So that just goes to show you, Babylon Bee, a satire news network, is banned on Twitter,
right.
But the Taliban is not.
Yeah, Nicolas Maduro, totalitarian dictator over Venezuela that is completely oppressing his people. He has a platform. He has a voice. And he spews propaganda all over the place. So that's just very odd to me. So anyway, Elon Musk is getting involved. He buys, I believe, 9.1% of the shares of Twitter, making him the largest or second largest holder in Twitter stock. So when that happens, they're going to bring him onto the board. And Elon Musk denies going on the board when it became an absolute formality where they were going to bring him on board. And I was always curious, man, why did he deny getting on the board? One of the things is that the board of Twitter had stipulations is when he became a board member, saying he wasn't allowed to get any more stock, like all these things. Basically, he wasn't going to be able to change the company. It was going to be worthless. So now he's in a state where he's basically saying he wants to buy all the stocks at an increased profit margin right now and own 100% of the stocks, which I think it's like estimated another $43 billion. And he is getting the fight of his life on that right now.
Yeah, so I guess that's what the poll was talking about. And if you saw, I just put it up on the screen a second ago, where he said free speech is essential to a functioning democracy. Do you believe Twitter adheres? And then he said vote carefully because like the results of this poll will be important, the consequences of this poll. And that's what he was talking about. Later he announced he owned what was 9% of Twitter stock?
Yeah, 9.1% was the first initial. And right now it's kind of the bluff. He wants to buy all these other stock and own it 100%. And there's a bunch of people, and I think it's a 30% increase, on top of. So he's not buying the stock at what it's worth right now. He's buying the stock at an increased value. So everybody there that would be selling their stock, so that would require, let's say I owned Twitter stock, it would require me to sell that to him at an increased profit margin.
So you would make money. Yeah.
So it's very fair. But he is having a lot of people. I mean, one of the major people. I believe BlackRock, which is a major company, which I didn't realize owns so much share in Twitter, and the Prince of Saudi Arabia also holds a lot of shares. So it's just a little strange to me that there's some people, and you know, there's some sketchy things about BlackRock, and we're not going to get into that right now because it's a whole nother probably podcast. But the fact is that a lot of these people are not deep free speech advocates. So it's very, very odd to me why they're pushing back so hard when they could make a lot of money. And it's like a wonder to me, do they really, really believe in this company? From a
No.
right. Or do they just want to suppress the freedom of speech? Do they believe in making money, or do they believe in power? Because at the end of the day, there's a lot of people that you can only get so wealthy, and it's all about power, and it's no longer about money.
I mean, like, it's no surprise. Like, Elon Musk has been a huge advocate of free speech, and it's funny how he's become a big ally to the conservative or to the Republican Party, and not even like that's not what he's trying to do.
Right.
He's just advocating for free speech.
Right.
He hates it when people get censored, and it so happens that big tech is censoring Republicans, and by him wanting free speech, he's become an ally to the Republican Party. And if the tables were flipped and Democrats were getting censored, then he would be an ally to the Democrats just because he wants free speech, and that's crazy to think about. And that's, it's like you were saying, that's odd, and when you think about it, it's not so odd. It's they literally want to control the free speech.
Well, you're looking at the Prince of Saudi Arabia. I mean, women just got the right to drive there in the last 5 years. Like, so that's not a bastion of freedom. So I don't really think he's so focused on, I believe Elon Musk said that himself, I don't think that they're so focused on preserving freedom as much as they are preserving control and totalitarianism.
Yeah, exactly. Like
through the private sector, because they can't do it through. It's like a runaround. They can't do it because our constitution's in the way, so they're going to run around it, take control of big companies, and indoctrinate, you know, totalitarian mindsets through our private sector.
Yeah, and companies like Google and Twitter and Facebook, currently they're not held to the same standard as a news outlet. So these companies can censor whatever they want. They can censor you just because they don't like your point of view, and that's what's happening. And that's one of the biggest issues that we're facing right now. And when other companies try to make free speech platforms, they just don't take off the same way. They're not as popular because that's just not the way social media works.
Right.
So Elon Musk, with all this money, wants to come in and buy it, and it's not a big financial move, and he even admitted it. It's not so much to gain wealth. Rather than to finally like bring freedom to a big social media platform, so people can say what they want to say. I mean, aside from like dangerous things like I don't know, routing up the Taliban and forming a terrorist organization.
Well, because we believe that freedom of speech always has had limits. Threats of violence have never been a part of freedom of speech. I'm not allowed to tell somebody, I'm going to kill you, and wave a gun in the air.
Yeah,
and just because I don't shoot you doesn't mean I'm not going to jail. No, you're going to jail. Credible threats are illegal, so we understand that. But the free marketplace of ideas, that's what we're really, truly protecting.
Yeah, exactly.
And my whole thing is, what's everybody so upset about? He's not going to censor them. He's just going to let loose other people who have been censored.
And they want that control. So it's like... what Twitter's trying to do now is release the poison pill, as they're calling it, where they're like kind of like not flooding the market. I think they're what's it called? They're like I forgot the name, but they're making stock less valuable so that other people can buy more and
devaluing their own stocks.
Exactly. So now Elon Musk is no longer the largest shareholder.
So they can diminish his percentage, basically creating more stocks through devaluation.
Exactly.
And then other people can buy, making him a lower shareholder.
Exactly.
Not a 9% stake shareholder.
And that's what they did. So Elon Musk is no longer the largest shareholder. So he had offered to buy the whole thing, and they're trying to stop him from doing that. And I mean, it's the free market. I have no problem with it playing out the way it does. It's just the reasons as to why. So like I know a lot of people that are right leaning, they're gonna complain about that, and it's like, hey, you can't complain when the free market doesn't go your way. It's the free market, you know. And as much as I wish that Elon Musk could do this and bring freedom to Twitter, I'm not gonna complain when the free market. I mean, it's the free market. And but Elon Musk did threaten. He said like if they don't sell Twitter to him, he's going to sell all his stock.
And flood his market, and then they've already devalued it. Now it's really going to tank.
Yeah, it's going to tank. And he said he had a backup plan too. He said he had a plan B. So let's see what happens. Let's see how that plays out. But I'm very interested to find out. And it's definitely kind of showing the hand and the motives of the people who don't want to let it happen.
Right.
Because if you're going to make money, if you're in stocks to make money, that's why people get into stocks.
Right.
If you're in stocks to make money and you're refusing the sell where you would actually make money, it makes me question the motive.
Right.
You want to control Twitter, and you want to continue to control and censor people
Right.
who want to say things that are different than you.
Right. And so one thing we have to talk about is the I think it's Section 230, which has been a protection for social media platforms. Actually, a lot of internet platforms, because when you publish things, such as a book, such as news organizations, you are responsible for what is being published. Now, that would be a publisher. Now, these social media outlets are considered platforms where people are publishing things themselves. That then took liability away from these social media platforms, where they basically were allowed to let people post whatever they want, and they could not be sued or be held liable for things that people did with their own freedom.
Yeah, no.
You would have to go after that individual directly. If somebody said, "Hey, I'm going to blow up the White House," for instance, then you couldn't hold Facebook accountable. You could hold the individual accountable. And that was the whole protection of Section 230. Now,
I'll just read it here.
basically, do you have it pulled up?
Yeah, I have it pulled up. It says, no provider or user of an interactive computer service shall be treated as the publisher or speaker of any information provided by another information content provider. And that's basically what you just said.
Right.
That they can't be held, so Facebook can't be held responsible for me posting like snuff films or
Right.
I don't know, like terrorist threats or anything like that.
Right.
That would be me in my own entirety. But then that provides this issue that we're talking about, right? So if they have that protection where we can't, so people can't go after them for the things that I post, they would have to go after me. Then they shouldn't have the protection that they can censor me. If they're coming after me, then I should be allowed to say whatever I want to say.
Right. And here's the thing, that they have these, morality standard clauses that they have for their platforms, and most of the things we agree with. They don't want pornography on there. They don't want violence on there. But then they have abusive and offensive language. Well, define abusive and offensive, because that could get down to the point where it's the owner of the company, just something he disagrees with. That's something that I don't like. Of course, I don't want to see child pornography posted all over Facebook. I think that that's horrible. And I really have no problem with Facebook censoring that. It's at what point do you take that power and you start, censoring the free marketplace of ideas? When you start censoring all conservative values, I have to say, you are no longer a platform. You are strictly a left-wing publisher.
Yeah, and
and then be that, but we got to take away your
the protection.
Take away your protection, and you're gonna have to hire a whole lot more people to basically view every single post that comes out. Like
exactly.
Every post has to go through a verification process.
Exactly.
And I'm fine with that. Take away that protection.
And what you were saying about offensive or abusive language, how that can be very subjective.
Right.
Which does provide problems in and of itself, which need to be addressed. How do you define abusive and offensive? But take it a step further than that. Even if you want to say that the word stupid is abusive and offensive, and you don't want to allow the word stupid on your platform, what these publishers, what these platforms are doing right now are they'll let a leftist say stupid, but they won't let a right wing outlet say stupid.
Right.
So they're not holding to the same standard. It's a huge double standard.
Right.
You'll have the same thing said by both sides, but right gets censored and left does not.
Right.
And that to me is like the biggest issue.
Right.
It's like hold the same standard.
And so we say all this to say, I want to make the case that I'm okay with Twitter doing that if we take away that protection. Now, that's not happening. But one of the things that Elon Musk is pointing out is that we need freedom of speech for a functioning society. For civilization to exist, we need freedom of speech. The entire Western world, which is really the only place that anybody would really want to live, if I'm just going to be completely
any
honest.
civilization worth living in.
Right.
Because you can go back to the medieval times where nobody can speak their mind
Right.
and everyone would get beheaded, and who wants to live like that?
Right. So the Western world, one of our foundational values is freedom of speech and lack of censorship. Now, we see that being eroded, and when you see that eroded in certain countries, thank God, not this one from our government, you start to see that there become a lot of issues that come up. and we could get into Germany and a lot of the things that they are censored and not allowed to say, and how that affects that country as a whole, how that's affecting the entire culture of that country, and it's not preserving even the Judeo-Christian values because of certain things you're just not allowed to say. And it's shifting that culture, and once you shift the culture, you start to then affect the everyday life, the family, the economics, the military capability. Once you shift a culture, you implode a country. A lot of people don't understand that that's all a culture is really based on is values. And the freedom of speech is our number one value of the West. Number one value is the first in our, our amendment in our Constitution. Elon Musk is trying to preserve this because he knows that is the underlying foundation which makes everything that we see here, that we have here in the Western world possible, is the freedom of speech. Twitter right now is that free marketplace of ideas. Twitter right now is the place where we discuss things, where ideas get put out because it's a major platform. And if you censor certain ideas, there's only certain ideas that will get out there because they're being put out on a platform, and then those are going to be the things that shape culture. That is very communist, and that's very totalitarian. It's simply being done through the free market. I think Elon Musk is an American hero trying to stop that. And you know what? If their ideas are so great, they should be able to hold up to the scrutiny for things that me and you would probably have to say counter to them.
Exactly. And I'm such a huge advocate of free speech. I'm going to go a step further, and I don't know how many of you would agree with this, but I think that you should be allowed to fly whatever. If you wanted to, I don't know, fly a swastika, right. I think you should be allowed to do that. I think it's a horrible idea. Right. I think it's extremely offensive and insensitive, right. And you're a horrible human being, right. if you truly believe those principles. But it's your right.
Right.
And I think that platforms can get involved in censoring you, but I don't think the government should. And currently in Germany, it's illegal to do that.
So, yeah, they're not allowed to talk anything about the Holocaust in Germany. And even if you go to the Jews in Skokie, I forget the state it's in, but there's a city called Skokie. There were white nationalists that were parading around, swastikas through their neighborhood. And the Jews in Skokie were saying that that's still their right. And I'm sure that they hated that. I'm sure the men hated that their wives had to see that their children had to see that they had to feel threatened, but they actually didn't commit any violence. They simply protested and they believed in their right. And I will say, yes, people like that, as evil and vile as it is, they have the right to do that. I have the right to push back and tell them how evil it is. We have the right to debate that.
We have the right to counter-protest.
Absolutely. But and that's what makes America great. That's what makes the West different from other places, because then the whole idea is that truth has the power to censor lies. Truth will stand up to scrutiny, and whatever is held, whatever lie is built on, whatever things are built on lies, scrutiny has the ability to implode that, and the truth can come out every time. And I really believe that, and that's why the West has been the place it's been.
And getting into free speech here, the reason I think it's so important, and the reason I think you should be allowed to display symbols like that, is because although I believe, and I think you believe as well, that there is such thing as objective truth, there is objective right, and there is objective wrong. Even though that truly exists, I don't believe humanity's always hit that target. So here's the truth. And sometimes humanity's like, no, it's not that, it's this. This is right and this is wrong. And sometimes humanity does that. And when we take away someone's ability for free speech, we're not giving the option for us to come back to the true objective truth.
Right.
So take Nazi Germany, for instance. They turned what is obviously objectively wrong, which is genocide, and they made that okay. They made that truth.
Right.
And imagine if the government then says to the people, no, you're not allowed to, be pro-Jew, or you're not allowed to have the Star of David or whatever, or display your Jewish heritage. You're not allowed to do that. Well, they're totally off base. They're totally wrong. And taking away someone's free speech to do that means that we can never come back to the objective truth. And that's why I think we shouldn't be the makers of what's right and what's wrong. We should allow people to speak their mind,
right.
In order for us to arrive at that truth.
Right. And as long as you're not affecting the life, liberty, and property of an individual, so we're not allowed to kill anybody, we're not allowed to steal their stuff, and we're not allowed to enslave them. If you're not doing those things, or maybe even threatening to do those things, we really should be able to say, because there's a big difference between saying something and doing something. And we have to realize that we have to treat those things different. Words and speech is not violence. As much as that is some idea that's being pushed around right now, it's not. I can tell you some ugly things, and that's way different than me punching you in the face.
Exactly.
Totally different.
Yeah, exactly. And so I'm very happy and excited that Elon Musk is trying to do this with a huge platform like Twitter, and I really hope he does.
Right.
And I hope that comes through and that people can see it for what it really is.
Right.
These moves that the power companies are making to try not to allow him to do that seems to be a little deeper. It's not about money. It seems to be more about control.
Right.
But that being said, that's an example in the private sector. Let's move on to our next topic.
Right. So I want to talk a little bit about Disney, and now this is the government getting involved in a private institution, and I'm usually not a big fan of that, but right now there's just an issue with Ron DeSantis, who I want to say is my favorite governor, and America's governor, hopefully, God willing, President of the United States one day. I truly am hoping for that and believing for that. Right now, there's been a battle with Disney over a bill, the parental rights bill that has been deemed the Don't Say Gay bill. Actually, it's law now. So it's not just a bill. It's actually, thank God, been put into law. And, brief overview of the bill is just saying that, hey, you're not allowed to give sexual instruction to K through third grade.
I think, yeah.
So after 8 years old, you're allowed to give sexual instruction. So even that bill, the only thing I disagree with it is that it doesn't go all the way through 12th grade. Sexual instruction should never be something that we give to our students. I believe that, we teach sex from a biological standpoint. We can tell people, how to protect themselves much later in life. Maybe 14, 15, we can always debate that. But we don't give sexual instruction on how to behave sexually.
Yeah, that's what you mean. So
right.
biologically speaking, yeah,
Right.
definitely I think
Right.
they should be instructed, and that's what school is for.
Right.
But your opinions on who's a man, who's a woman, who
Right.
should be with who, I think those are opinions, and those should not, they have no place in
Right.
K through 8.
Right.
And I agree with that wholeheartedly. And I don't think that that's in any way racist or oppressive or anything like that, because it applies to both sides.
Right.
It's a standard that not only protects people who believe white conservative Christian values, or however you want to look at it, with a traditional man and woman marriage and two genders, but it also protects the other side who believe in 125 million genders.
Right.
And who believe, that everything is okay. It protects them too, because you won't have, or it'll be illegal for the teacher that believes that Johnny's two gay parents are living in sin. It'll be illegal for her to tell the student that.
Right.
So I can't go, if I'm a teacher, I can't go and tell little Johnny, like, hey, your parents are living in sin and you can't do that. Don't follow their example. It protects both sides.
Right.
And that's totally acceptable. Like that has no place in the classroom. That should be talked about by the students and their parents at
Right.
home. So the
Right.
kids and their parents.
Right. And so basically that's all the bill does. So then it's been deemed this Don't Say Gay bill, which is the most idiotic statement. Anybody who's ever read the bill knows that the word gay is nowhere in there.
Don't say gay because it's not even said.
Exactly. Yeah, don't say gay because it's not in the bill. The bill doesn't say it. That's the only justification for calling it that. So that being said, it's simply sexual instruction. It doesn't say that you can't talk about being gay. It doesn't even say that you can, people who say, I can't talk about my partner going paddleboarding over
That's
the
not
weekend.
true.
That's not true either. Kind of odd. As a teacher, I don't know. I don't feel like I would talk about my personal life with my students, but if that's something you want to do, that's not what the bill even says.
If you had a picture of your spouse on the table, whether it was a picture of a heterosexual spouse or a homosexual, it doesn't matter. You're allowed to do it. The only thing you're not allowed to do is that sexual instruction. And Disney has pushed back.
Right.
So I think the CEO of Disney, I forgot his name, Bob, I forgot his name. I'll have to look it up. But he actually met with DeSantis to try and change his mind. That obviously didn't go well. That didn't work. And I don't know why you would. Anybody who just understands, looks at the bill, it's like, okay, obvious. That's a no-brainer. Right. But now Disney has vowed to help repeal the bill and fight back. And how have they done that?
Well, one of the things that they said we are not going to give any money to any candidate that endorses this bill, which is going to be basically all Republicans and a lot of Democrats, just to be honest, because I just saw a poll that a majority of voters, I think it was 57 or 67% of all voters, Democrats included, agreed with the bill when the bill was actually read to them.
Yeah, if they don't know what it
and
is.
It was, and I think that was even 53% of Democrats alone agreed with the bill.
That's crazy.
Right, when it was fully read to them, when they didn't just hear the "don't say gay," when they actually had the bill fully read to them. So, I mean, I guess there's going to be some Democrats that are not going to be, okay, or they're just not they're going to refuse to endorse the bill. So that being said, that is a problem where we see, money in politics with big companies endorsing candidates and things like that, which I would just like to see that kind of be rid of.
Yeah.
Just in my mind. But there's been this massive pushback. So Ron DeSantis has said, okay, you're not going to endorse any candidates. You're not going to give any money or any donations to any candidates that endorse this bill. Well, now we're going to repeal one of their tax loopholes. I don't know if it's a loophole you want to call it.
It's
but
like some exempt. It helps them out, and it
Right.
helps them out because they're a huge corporation.
Right. So basically, Disney has its own city. It's called the Reedy Creek Improvement District, I believe. And the Reedy Creek is essentially its own city. So Disney is able to build whatever roads they want to do. They don't need to pull out permits. They are the place that, pulls permits. They pull their own permits. They build their own roads. They have their own, emergency facilities, fire, police, their own jails, things of that nature. They have all this that is their own. They're their own city. So it saves them, I believe, over $10 million every year. Because that money that they're providing these services for themselves, they don't have to pay in taxes. They do have to provide the services, but they don't have to pay in taxes. That just gives you a whole idea that private companies and private citizens manage money far better than the government does. So that's just a thing that Disney has, and it's made them very wealthy, made them very productive, made them very efficient.
Mm-hmm.
So now DeSantis is not just threatening to get rid of that protection, but redistricting and basically getting rid of that city and making it, I don't know exactly how that works. I've never heard of a governor getting rid of, I guess, a city or reclassifying a city for that purposes. But the point being that it will not be owned by a corporation. The city will not be owned by a corporation. I don't know how that works exactly, but that's not just a threat anymore. That is actually being drawn up in a bill right now that I'm not sure if it will be passed or not, but if it does get passed, that is going to put a world of hurt on Disney. But here's the thing. Play stupid games, win stupid prizes.
I just feel like corporations shouldn't be involved with the government in the first place. I mean, it's annoying that Disney would say like, oh, we're not going to give financial help only to politicians that endorse this bill. But I wish they wouldn't do it at all.
Right.
Companies start endorsing politicians, and that's how lobbying happens. They start to get their way. Hey, Mr. Jack Jill, we're going to give you money to run for this, and we're going to endorse your campaign because I know that when I'm in trouble and when I need it, you're going to make bills and policies that are going to favor me.
Right.
And the company, the corporation. And that just makes laws that are not in the best interest of people, but they're in the best interest of companies.
Right.
And that doesn't always work out the best way. And a good example is solar. So solar energy is becoming the next big thing in Florida. It's huge. And there's a bill on the floor that it passed. I'm sorry, it's not even on the floor. It passed Senate and it passed the House, and it's going to DeSantis, which basically gets rid of net metering, which is it would essentially get rid of solar. Like, solar is no longer a viable option, so nobody would do solar anymore. Mm-hmm. And why is this bill? Why did it even pass? Why is it in the position that it's in? Because FPL lobbied it. Right. So FPL wanted this bill to pass because it would help them, it would help their pockets, and it would help them to continue their power monopoly. Mm-hmm. So if that wasn't even allowed in the first place, then it would favor the people. Hopefully DeSantis isn't going to be swayed by money and he'll veto the bill.
Right.
But the same thing is happening with Disney, right? So I wish they wouldn't get involved in this at all, and I wish that wasn't even the case.
Right. Because here's the whole thing. I would like I'm a fan of Disney. Now, I've been very upset with the way and direction they've gone, but I think they're an excellent company. They've been very productive. They've been very innovative, and they've been, very, progressive in the sense of their company's grown, not progressive in the sense of leftist progressive values. Now they're doing that, and it's making me very upset. But I've seen what they've done with that basically it's a giant tax break. The fact that they have their own city is a giant tax break. I've seen what they've done. I usually hate when a government gets involved with a company, especially a company that's doing well, especially a company that's providing jobs, and not only that, good jobs, and providing avenues for those individuals not to just stay where they're at the bottom, but literally coming in as a janitor and giving them options to say, hey, we'll send you to school, we'll move you up. A really good company that makes somebody's economic life and future possibly much better. I hate when a government gets involved with that. My problem is they shouldn't have went head to head with the government. They should have stayed the hell out of it. They should have said, hey, we're here to make money. Our interest is in the interest of the people who buy our stuff, not a 500 of the woke employees out of the 200,000 that they had that signed the one signature list. It was like 500 people that signed it, saying they wanted their company to make a statement. 500 people, they're 200,000. I would have told those people where to walk. I would have told them exactly where to go. And so that's such an issue when you get involved with politics. And now they have half the population that is probably not buying Disney movies, has probably decided, hey, we're not going to go to the parks. I haven't gone to the parks since. I haven't watched a Disney movie since. And I'm pretty sure I'm not the only one who feels that way.
Yeah. No, and I think it's mostly a power move to save face.
Right.
Like, we're not going to endorse any politician that does this. So, like, hey, guys, look, we're on your side. We're doing something about it. We're doing what we can. That's all I think it is. Right. Because if the majority of I don't think it's a morality thing at all. I think if the majority of the people were like in support of the bill, then they wouldn't have done a damn thing. Because I don't think it's a morality thing. I think it's hey, let's save face, let's look good. But in reality, what they're doing is they're hurting themselves. Because I mean, ever since this new CEO came in and all his woke politics and all his it's just gone downhill.
Real quick, I just correct you. That was the past CEO. This CEO right now is a coward, and I want to really, can we look up who he is real quick?
Yeah.
So the past CEO was a actual leftist that was really into promoting certain agendas that I don't think have any place in children's art.
Bob Chapek.
Now we have Bob Chapek. This guy was more right-leaning. He wanted Disney out of politics, and he wanted to just focus on the growth of the company. That's what I think a good CEO should do. That was much better than the past CEO. Now he
I think it was Bob Iger before him.
Bob Iger, yes, he was the one that was previous. That was the guy who had very leftist agenda, which that's very odd to me.
Yeah.
And, very pro LGBTQ in the sense that he wanted to push that in the children's projects. If you're LGBTQ, that's no mind to me.
Yeah,
but when you're pushing that in children's projects, that's where I have a problem. Now we have Bob Chapek, who was getting away from that, wanting to stay focused, get out of politics, wanted to stay focused on building the company and making it more money. He caved. He caved because he's a coward. He didn't stick to his values. He caved because a few hundred woke employees out of 200,000 decided to write him a letter, and he caved.
And aside from politics, I just think he's done a horrible job. I mean, he's gotten rid of so many things, and like he got rid of Fast Pass, and right. This isn't the type of podcast for that, but he's really tanked the company.
No. I know what he was set out to do. I'm not saying he did a good job and what he set out to do, but his focus was in the direction of what a CEO should be. Not that we can always debate how well he did from a business standpoint, but
which was also horrible.
Right. What a CEO should do is focus on the company, not focus on politics.
Exactly.
And now, he's just going to overwhelmingly, hurt the company even more.
Yeah.
So, like I said, I hate when the government gets involved, but at this point, you went head-to-head with the governor. You went head-to-head with one of his bills. You made a wave that you didn't need to.
Yeah.
And it affected you in no way. You had 200 employees throw a fit.
Literally, yeah. I mean, you're not...
0.001% of your employees threw a fit.
You're not the government. You're not a lawmaker.
Yeah.
You're not you're a company set out to make money, and that's it. That's what you should do.
Right.
And when you start trying to get involved with bills and policies, especially something just because a few employees called out for it, I mean, that's where you're going to run into trouble.
Right.
So, I mean, we're at 34 minutes.
Right.
Do you have anything else you want to say?
No, I think that's about it, but this has been an excellent episode.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for watching.
Yeah.
You want to say your usual subscribe?
Yeah, please subscribe to our different platforms. We're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, of course, here on Instagram, Facebook as well. Please like and share this. Let people know if you enjoyed this. Maybe some of your friends and family will enjoy it. We'd love to grow this. We do plan to grow it continuously. But thank you everybody who's been here. But this is us signing off. This is the Doug and Fur Show.
Right.